So what exactly happened is on Friday, a train, a Norfolk Southern train, essentially crashed. It went off the rails. And this train was carrying tanker cars full of toxic chemicals. And some of these toxic chemicals leaked out of these tanker cars. So before we even get to what happened next, I want to address the question, well, why did this happen? How did this train go off the rails? Literally, not just the phrase. How did this train go off the rails? Because this is a pretty serious accident to happen. We do hear about train accidents, but one carrying toxic chemicals. Could this have been prevented, or was there some negligence that led to this? And the answer to that is it appears that there was some negligence. The National Transportation Safety Board said that there were, quote, preliminary indications of mechanical issues on an axle on one of these tanker cars. So the axle was broken. In fact, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette showed that this train had traveled more than 20 miles with a broken axle. So 5 of the cars that derailed were filled with these toxic chemicals, and the toxic chemicals spilled. And we do have a manifest of what chemicals were spilled. Probably the most famous one, the one that we're all hearing about, is vinyl chloride. We're going to talk about that more in just a second. But some of the other ones are ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, isobutylene, ethyl hexyl acrylate. These are serious chemicals, right? This is not a joke. This is not this is not something that's benign. This is hazardous material. These are combustible, poisonous, toxic carcinogens. In fact, this brings us back into a circle. The same question that we were talking about before when I said, well, these plumes that we're seeing in the sky, this is not the accident. The plumes that we saw in the sky was the deliberate choice of government officials to, quote unquote, stage this controlled burn, which is a very questionable decision for multiple reasons. There's both the practical reasons and there's the moral dilemma. The practical reasons, I want to show you probably the best overview of the science about what happens with vinyl chloride, what vinyl chloride can do to people, what it means that it's now dispersed into the atmosphere, into the air, into the water that I've seen. So take a look at this.
This hasn't been getting a lot of coverage, and the coverage that it has been getting hasn't been very good. So let's talk about the trail derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. East Palestine's about an hour north of Pittsburgh, almost halfway to Cleveland. Norfolk Southern has a rail line that goes right through town, and this derailment happened right on the edge outside of town on the border of PA and Ohio. Of the cars that crashed, 5 of them contained vinyl chloride. It's a monomer used to make PVC. Some of the reporting on this has gotten vinyl chloride confused with polyvinyl chloride, the polymer made out of vinyl chloride. Now, the reason that this distinction is really important is vinyl chloride is very hazardous and very flammable. Polyvinyl chloride is a plastics that's used in like everything. The other thing about vinyl chloride is that it boils at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's shipped in its liquid form. Meaning that when these trains crashed and these started leaking, they weren't just leaking liquid, but they were spewing boiling gas. So vinyl chloride is really toxic. OSHA has the permissible limit of how much you can be exposed to it during an 8-hour shift as a 1 ppm part per million, average over 8 hours. So prior to this, the biggest spill of this chemical was in New Jersey, where one train car and about 23,000 gallons of vinyl chloride were spilled, but it didn't catch on fire. Now, this crash in Ohio has 5 train cars. These kinds of tanker cars can carry between 25 and 33,000 gallons. Let's call it 250 to 250,000 pounds of vinyl chloride. That's per train car, 5 train cars. There's maybe 1 million pounds of this toxic chemical spilling into the ground and also boiling off into the air. But then it caught on fire. I think this is where the reporting is really bad because no one is mentioning what the byproduct of vinyl chloride burning is. Of the many byproducts of burning vinyl chloride, one of them is hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride is really unstable and latches onto water, like just water vapor in the atmosphere, and that turns into hydrochloric acid. So right now, government officials from the railroad, both the governor of Pennsylvania and Ohio are calling burning off the 1 million pounds of this stuff a success, but not mentioning that it means that we have hundreds of thousands of pounds of acid in the air, potentially. Now, ever since engineering school, I've studied a lot of industrial accidents. I just find it really fascinating, and organizations like the Chemical Safety Board, NTSB, and OSHA all have like really good reports available to the public. I think as a designer, it's really good to learn about mistakes. When looking at these kinds of industrial disasters across time, there are a couple things that are pretty universal across all of them. One, the responsible party, in this case, Norfolk Southern Railway, always plays down the reality of the situation. Politicians also just repeat the same lines, and then news outlets just repeat the same. So all we're hearing is the responsible party's word.
So that video was made by an engineer by the name of Nick Drum. He posted that on TikTok, and it's gotten millions and millions of views because he very easily explains what happens when vinyl chloride, what happens to it, what the byproducts of vinyl chloride, that it turns into hydrogen chloride, which latches onto water vapor, which turns into hydrochloric acid, which means that there's acid in the environment, in the air, and potentially in the water. The vinyl chloride, at least, can potentially be in the water. In fact, the vinyl chloride has now been found in the Ohio River in West Virginia, and then all the way down southeast outside of Cincinnati as well, and on that Ohio-Kentucky border. I like 4 Patriots, and I think you will too, because a food shortage could be coming even in the US. This is what experts were writing as recently as July. Drought, inflation, and new political policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. I encourage you to create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. Handpicked right in a family-owned facility in the US and giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are great. They're compact, sturdy, water-resistant. They stack easily. They have different breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and it's super easy to make. You can make these in less than 20 minutes. You just add boiling water, simmer, and then serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off. That's 4Patriots, code Liz, to start building your own stockpile. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.
Looking for an email you actually want to read? We've got you covered. Sign up for the Up First newsletter only from The First. Every morning we deliver the day's essential headlines and prepare you for what everyone will be talking about. Plus, you'll also get instant analysis and real facts, helping you cut through the liberal mainstream media spin. Don't wait. Sign up for the Up First newsletter right now at thefirsttv.com.